All right. So my plan, my friends, if it's okay with you guys, I would like to, between now and Friday, get done with first semester book. That means come Tuesday next week, I need you to have the second semester book. Does that make sense?
Good week?
Yeah.
What did I do to deserve that?
Well, I gave you a little grace. Do what I can for you, brother. All right. So we're taking a look at contingency tables. And these aren't that tough to look at.
One pendant's dead.
What happened to your? Oh, is that mine?
Yours is right there.
Cool. Okay. I was like,
I brought a pencil stir.
Of course.
So many pencils. What pages are now?
86.
It's like pencils below.
All right. So on page 86, they have the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Oceans, and they have categories 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as far as hurricanes go. And there looks like 20, 16, and 10 for a total of 46 down this column. 16, 8, and 4, category 2s down this column. 10, 6, 2. So that's 38, 18. Category 4, 5, 5, 1. So it's 11, and then 2, 4, 1, which is 7, which that means that the total over here is 53, 39, 18, and 110. All right, so basically how you read this is you have 5 different categories of hurricanes. You have 3 different oceans they're talking about. In order to get to this 53, you'd go 2016, 10, 5, 2 to get 53. Add up this row to get 39. Add up this row to get 18. Add this column to get to 46. This column to get 38. This column, 18, blah, blah, so on and so forth. And then the total coming this way and the total coming this way would come out to 110. Yeah? Maybe. 1684? At the bottom, right? Hang on, you might be right. Let's see. 16 and 8 is 24. That should be 28. So they had it misprinted. Everything else work? Let's see. 36, 46, that works. 16, 18, 11. All right, so if I add across, let's go. That's 14, 22, 23. There's my categories, right? I'm off someplace. 10, 4, 2. That's 18. 24, 30, 39. Now it's right? Okay. Yeah, so this was an error. They had this as an error, so make sure, maybe make that little modification on your paper. Yeah, it should be 28 and 38. We have a hard time adding things and doing arithmetic things. All right. So example 1 says, what is the probability that we select a category 1 hurricane? So a category 1 hurricane, there's 46. There's 46 out of 110. Okay, so that's example 1. So selecting a level 3 or higher, so 3 or higher, so you have 18, 11, and 7. If you add 18 and 11, that's 29, plus that is 36. So it's 36 out of 110 chance that you select a category 3 or higher. If you select something that happened in the Atlantic Ocean, there was 53 hurricanes, which were categories 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of 110. So I'm just going through those examples showing you how they get the numbers. Selecting an Atlantic or a Pacific, so you're taking these two, the 53 and the 39, add those together, and that will give you 92, so 92 out of 110. Notice we're not reducing the fractions. And that is actually very acceptable not to do in statistics, is not reduce the fractions. especially when you're dealing with something called a contingency table. Example 5. I want to select a category, Atlantic Category 1. So there's 20 of those that took place, and they're out of 110 different storms that had taken place. Example 6, selecting a hurricane that is Pacific less than Category 3. So Pacific is here, but less than Category 3. So 16 and 8 add together to give you 24. So you have 24 out of 110 chance of picking one of those. So they all just basically go along with the certain categories. And the one thing that we have to realize is because we're selecting out of all hurricanes, our denominator would still be 110. Okay, so that's just probability like that. Now, example 8 gets a little goofier. They want the probability that you have a Pacific hurricane, and then that will be Category 5. Okay, so now it's going to change a little bit. Okay, so how many hurricanes are in the Pacific Ocean? Category 5. How many Category 5s are Pacific? 4. Okay, so that's our numerator. But we're not going to use the 110. What they're basically going to do is they're going to say, let's not think about the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We're going to think about just the Pacific Ocean only. So there happens to be 39 that happened just in the Pacific Ocean. So if you eliminated the other two oceans in this, and you just said, hey, I want to look just at, hey, I eliminated the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans. They're gone. So I'm canceling out, and I'll just highlight these real quick. I'm canceling out. I'm just looking at these. That's the major thing that we're dealing with. Okay? So that's where contingency tables start getting a little goofier. Okay, so let's see. Page backside. All right. 85, 86, 87. All right. So that was example 8. Now another way that you might say example 8 is they might use this type of terminology. What's the probability? It's a Category 5 such that you're dealing with Pacific. This means such that in the world of stats. Okay? It means the exact same thing. The such that means, hey, what category are we dealing with? Now, it could be a row, it could be a column, but you deal with that with such that. Okay? So if you take a look at example 9, example 9 says, probability Category 1 such that Atlantic. Okay, how many hurricanes happen in the Atlantic Ocean? 53. How many of those happen to be a Category 1? 20. So we looked at this as my denominator. This is my numerator. Okay, example 10. They wanted to say probability of Atlantic such that Category 1. So how many Category 1 hurricanes are there? There's 46. How many of them happen to be in the Atlantic? 20. Okay. Then example 11's running out of colors. Got to go to my fancier colors. Example 11 says Category 3 such that Atlantic or Pacific. Okay. How many happened in the Atlantic? How many were in the Atlantic? 53. How many were in the Pacific? 39. So you had 53 and 39 together, and you wind up with 92 as your denominator. What's the probability that if we look at just these two groups that happen to be a Category 3? And there would be 16 out of 92. Okay? And then example 12, got to switch some colors. Example 12. Probability that it's Indian Ocean such that it's a 4 or 5. Okay. So a 4 or 5 in the Indian Ocean. So how many are in the Indian Ocean itself? 18. And then a 4 or 5, add those together, so you get 2, 18. And again, I'm not reducing these. It's not wrong in statistics if you happen to reduce a fraction, but it doesn't have to take place, which the nice thing about it is, let's face it, our first dislike in math that occurred many years ago was when they introduced the F word, fraction, right? So if I don't have to reduce a fraction, I still kind of have to like this stuff. All right, so the two variables in the problem intensify in the ocean, it occupies. The variable intensity of a hurricane is measured in 5 levels, category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ocean is measured in 3 levels, being the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian. Yes, I realize there's other oceans that we deal with as well, but we're just dealing with those. Some observations of these outcomes are category 1, category 2 are mutually exclusive because you're not going to have both a category 1, category 2 hurricane take place. Now, a category 1 can indeed turn into a category 2, but we don't go back and say, oh yeah, it started out as category. I mean, honestly, everything started out as a storm, then turned into a hurricane, and based by the amount of winds is what changes the category from a 1, 2, 3 to 4 to 5. Fortunately, here in Colorado, we don't have to worry about hurricanes. Okay? We just get to watch social media clips of places that got devastated. We're going, oh, that's messed up. All right. So let's see. So mutually exclusive means that both events can't take place at the same time. So you can't have a category 1 and a category 2 be in the same exact storm. You just, whatever the highest rating of the storm gets to, is what you base it on. All right, the issue whether peak hurricane level is independent of the ocean it occupies is more important, a bit more complicated. Independence is theoretically tested with a couple of calculations. So the probability down below of a category 5, there are 7 total out of 110. So if you go 7 divided by 110 multiplied by 100, you'd wind up saying there's a 6.4% chance. Okay, so sometimes the chance, looking at the statistics, I think you all understand how to go 7 divided by 110 on a calculator, yes? And then move the decimal 2 places to the right because you multiply by 100. Okay, and then the probability, let's change to a different color. Let's go with, pink seems nice right now. So the probability that it's a category 5 such that it's in the Atlantic is 2 out of 53. And sometimes the fractions don't make much sense, but if you go 2 divided by 53, multiplied by 100, that comes out to 3.8%. Okay? So, since the probability that a Hurricane 5 seems to be lower in the Atlantic hurricanes, this adds evidence to the idea that Category 5 hurricanes are less likely for the Atlantic hurricanes, and therefore the intensity of hurricanes depends on the ocean where it takes place. Okay? So, here's where you got to be cautious. This might have been only a year or two's worth of data on a hurricane. I don't know exactly what if they told us it was. They didn't give us year or anything. So they just picked some segment of time, took these. Does this 3.8% necessarily mean that you have a less likely chance that you're getting a Category 5 in the Atlantic Ocean versus a 6.4 overall? I don't know. I mean, if you look at a day-to-day thing, just take something as simple as the stock market. Let's see. Let's just take a quick gander at what the market's doing right this very moment on January 9th. January 9th, Dow Jones is down 270 points. The S&P is down 21 points, but the NASDAQ is up 319 points. Okay, so should I base my financial decisions on just today's market? No. The main thing that you look at, as far as if you invest or anything in financials, this right here is basically what the stock market is doing up through 2018. From 1925 to 2018, it has an upward trend. The hard thing is, and especially with you guys, and there's nothing wrong with you guys, so just to let you know this, but your generation, you have been fed instantaneous data ever since you got yourself an iPhone. Agree? The hard thing is should you react based on something you're looking at just on your iPhone that happened just as an instant, or should you, if you're making lifelong decisions, should you take a step back and see the whole picture? And in my opinion, I think you should step back, take a look at the whole picture. Okay? That's kind of things that take place. You have grown up in a world that it went from global warming to now climate change. It is something taking place. The hard thing is you have people who will react immediately if a bad storm comes through and say the sky is falling. And they're basing their knowledge on one crappy storm. I live out in Littleton. I had a tornado this past summer touch down less than a quarter mile from my house, and I actually had $60,000 worth of damage to my house. I'm glad I have insurance. I got to get a new roof put on, which stinks about that is I have solar on my house, so I have to coordinate with the solar companies to have them come take the solar off, contact the roofing company to have the new roof put on, contact solar again, have my solar put back on, and then the siding on the whole north side of my house is destroyed, so now I have to contact a contractor to have the siding redone. Then I have to contact somebody who is a painter to repaint my house. And then I have to contact the fencing company to come out and put a new fence up. And it's all covered through insurance. But the reason I moved to the west side of I-25 is when I first moved here, I was told that no tornadoes have touched down on the west side of I-25 for the past 100 years. But I had a tornado touch down a quarter mile from my house. I live just to the north of Highlands Ranch. Okay? So, should I say that because of one specific event, that climate change is inevitable and I need to change everything about my life? Now, I'm not trying to say it's not happening. But a lot of times people with statistics will look at that, the 3.8 versus the 6.4%. We don't know what time period this has taken place on. This was not a random stratified sample of our data. This was just collected data based on observations on a certain time scheme. We don't know what the time scheme had been. And again, I'm not trying to tell you that things aren't taking place in the world, but the hard thing is you have all been thrown in your face all of the information on your phones that's coming to you immediately. Are you changing your life based on an instantaneous thing that you're seeing, or do you have enough foresight to realize I'm being entertained by this stuff and I'm going to share this with my friends? And don't get me wrong, I enjoy having somebody send me something, and then I forward it on to my friends. One friend group sends me something, I forward it on to another friend group. And my friend Todd, who is the least intelligent of the group, but acts like the most intelligent of the group, I sent something this morning. He's like, this can't be real. And I texted back to the group. I said, a friend of mine forwarded this to me, and I forwarded it to you. Therefore, it's got to be true. So, in the world of statistics, heck yeah, there's things that you should look at. There's things how you should live your life. Honestly, think about what Cherry Creek High School has meant for all of you. There's been all kinds of fun things in the world of education that someone comes out with, says, hey, look at this, let's change everything. Well, what I was told when I first got to Cherry Creek High School is Cherry Creek High School is a very big ship with a very small rudder, meaning we don't change what we are doing very quickly or very often. Okay? Let me just, by base of show of hands, how many of you have opted out, or your parents opted you out, of some sort of testing that's done by the state? Just raise your hand. Look around. See the hands? Does that mean we're a bad school? Do you know my first year here, 10 years ago, when they came out with the science state test? We had 22 students of our senior class that showed up. After the first test was given, most of those kids texted their family saying, hey, call this number and opt me out of this test. We don't have to be here. I think we honestly tested about 8 students in our senior class on the science test. The State Board of Education came out and said to Cherry Creek High School, hey, you didn't satisfy enough students to take this test. We're going to lower your accreditation rating. That was a letter that came from the State Board of Education to all of the parents in the district. Y'all know that there's some parents that are in this school that work for really big law firms, and they're really successful lawyers. Those lawyers on their legal letterhead basically sent a letter back to the State Board of Education, said, we will sue you if you lower the accreditation of this school. A few days later, another note came out, just kidding, we won't lower your accreditation. We need to reevaluate our thought. I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy about, I love that we have parent groups that are strong enough that realize what we're trying to do for you kids is better than what the state says we should do for you. And every couple of years they come out with something. Do you know that the district has now come out with a district-wide math curriculum? And they will not allow kids to advance. And there would not be any different levels of math. I mean, we have 2 levels of Algebra 1. We have 3 levels of geometry, 3 levels of Algebra 2, 2 levels of pre-calculus. There's basically 3 levels of statistics. We have a 1-semester class. We have this class, which is all year. Then we have AP Statistics. Could you imagine you having to be thrown in a room where you have students that, that kid Irwin. I don't know if there's really a kid named Irwin here. If there is, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make fun of Irwin. But the kid should be like in, string theory mathematics as a second grader. And the district comes out saying, hey, your kid can't advance. Do you know that we have 8 4th graders that are taking BC calculus at this school right now? 4th graders. Like, we will run out of math for these kids. And we offer more math than any other high school in the state.
Will those kids be going Ivy League someday?
Oh, yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so.
Or are they forced to do this by their parents, or are they like?
No, this is what the district is for. Well, their parents are like, hey, my kid's doing well in math, so they keep advancing them higher and higher in math. But could you imagine having to sit in a class with that kid who in 4th grade would have been in BC Calc, but they had to sit all the way through? That kid is going to be absolutely bored. Okay? I mean, level appropriate classes for students doesn't mean that people are dumb and people are smart. It means, hey, I just got done with your semester grades. Okay, well, it just got done before we went on break, but your semester grade, did you take a look at your grade in this class and say, my grade looks pretty good in this class compared to how I've done? I hope so. I've looked back at some of your grades in previous classes. Before I teach any of my classes, I go back and see where kids came from, see if they had a pretty good grade. Hey, how did these kids do? Oh, I see, hey, I had this kid in Algebra 1 as a freshman, and they got C's with me in Algebra 1. Now they have B's with me in statistics. That feels pretty good. to me as a teacher, knowing, hey, I had a kid that struggled a little bit with math, and now they're finding success in my class now as a senior. I think that's pretty cool. But could you imagine being forced to stay in the same level? I mean, there's certainly people out there that just, I'll say this. When I came to Cherry Creek High School, I used to be, when I was at Las Vegas Academy, when I was at Worcester High School, and I was at Chaparral High School, I was the best math teacher there at all three of those schools. I get here, I'm like, oh, I'm no longer the best. I mean, yes, I still think myself as the Rhinestone Cowboy, but oh man, there are some definitely way better teachers than I am, better thought process. I've learned so much more as a teacher being here, and the things I've learned from being here is allowing me, with fingers crossed, to say, hey, doctorate program, here I come. Okay? All right, so for next time, I would think page 201, 1 through 13 would be perfect to do. Don't worry about 202, just do 201.